Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Saddhammam Munirajassa Sunantu Sagga
I've heard, everybody's heard so many beautiful stories about the Buddha's life, what he did. Obviously, he was an extraordinary person. It was an extraordinary life. And it's incredibly inspirational for me to go to these places and actually sit there and remember, gosh, well, this happened there. And obviously the four major places, his birth, his enlightenment, the first discourse, and his passing away, parinibbana. But all these other places we went to too. And it was so nice to be so organized, didn't really have to think about anything. I could just go to these places. And not only as any pilgrim would, as Buddha says, with a devoted heart, but to actually meditate there as meditators. And for me, that was special. And the atmosphere is so strong, so special. For me, those were basically the highlights.
This yatra is the first time when I've meditated where there's been so much surrounding chanting and devotional Buddhism practice going on. And actually, I started to enjoy it, and just have it as part of that experience and the ambiance. It sort of resonated with how important these sites are for so many people in so many different ways.
I personally try to appreciate all these different traditions, just appreciate them for what they are. It's their expression. On Ashoka's edict, I'll just paraphrase, but when we glorify other religions, other traditions, we're glorifying our own tradition. And when we belittle or insult other traditions, we're belittling or insulting our own tradition.
Cooling off in the shade of a huge sala tree.
She grabbed on to a low branch of the mighty tree. Out came the most radiant being she had ever seen. And so it was, on the full moon day of Vishaka, that Prince Siddhartha, the Buddha to be, was born in a forest grove in Lumbini.
Being at the sites and hearing the stories worked in two ways for me, both to sort of make the stories come alive, to be at the actual sites and hear the stories, also to make the sites come alive, to be at those places and hear what actually happened.
There's some places where you can really feel, like the Eastern Gate in Kapilavastu, you can really feel what hardship it must have been, just leaving everything behind, leaving behind the family.
For he forgets that he himself is no exception.
One sees all these places and realizes just what an extraordinary person he was, what extraordinary things happened in his lives, and how much pain he took over so long to make it possible for me and everyone else to get that technique. And I'm sure that when one goes to these places and remembers again the stories, the gratitude can only increase.
As you get older, it becomes a bit more difficult to go to all these places and travel around and get on trains and buses, and to have it just so well organized to do that. And nothing can compare with the joy of meditating in all of the places that we have. And that's been the emphasis of the whole pilgrimage, to meditate with like-minded people, with people who we're walking on the path with, we're the Dharma companions.
sitting all night under the Bodhi tree and not feeling drowsy. I was shocked that I didn't fall asleep, that I was able to maintain my effort and determination throughout the night.
Meditating under the banyan tree or by one of the many shrines here is conducive to developing gratitude to both this Brahma and to the Buddha for sharing his experience with humanity, giving countless beings the opportunity to come out of their self-created misery.
I've always remembered these places from my last pilgrimage daily when I meditate. And now the picture is even more clear, And there was a lot of confusion about which place is where. That got cleared off. And now I know exactly even the smaller details, which you've so nicely gone into. That's helped. And all this increases your fondness for the Buddha, that's all, nothing else. Indirectly betters your practice.
The opportunity to give to a monk, it made me feel very humble and grateful.
We have in Mahaparinibbana Sutta, where Buddha talks about Chaitya Charika. Although it means that pagoda should be made Chaitya, a devout goes there and he pays respect. But, what I feel that Chaitya is like when the person goes there and he applies his consciousness, he not only goes and just prostrates there, but he meditates there. And Buddha says that if a person does this, one gets a lot of wonderful merit, he achieves. And that is something which becomes the guiding force for him to go ahead in the path of spirituality.
So when we go to the deer park, we're going to see lots of stupas, temples, monasteries, shrines. They were first built by Ashoka and then later renovated.
The Buddha reached Isipatana. Seeing him approach in the distance, the Panchavaggiya made an agreement among themselves to let the Buddha sit with them as a fellow Sakya clansman, but not to greet him with folded hands or take his robe and bowl, as was the custom amongst recluses. In their minds, Siddhartha had abandoned the holy life and reverted back to a life of luxury. However, as the radiant Buddha came closer and closer to their circle, each of them forgot their pledge. They stood up to meet him, took his robe and bowl, and prepared water to wash his feet. The Buddha began his famous first discourse. Bhikkhus, those walking on the path of purification, should avoid two extremes. Plunging into sensual pleasures makes one lazy. Depriving the body of its basic needs wastes one's energy. Both these extremes lead to failure. Therefore, bhikkhus, you must walk along a middle path.
I also really enjoyed being with the relics and Sarnath. The most joy I got from it was serving everybody and watching them have such a meaningful experience.
Well, the relics, what I was told, is a fragment of a bone of the Buddha. And to experience actually, that something that tiny can have such a powerful presence after all of these years. That was quite amazing.
The
Buddha smiled and replied, "The wise, absorbed in meditation, take delight in the inner calm of renunciation. The mindful and awake, all beings hold dear."
Coming back to Shravasti was very sweet. My memory was of how sweet it is, and that was just amplified. So it was just such a joy to return to this incredible place where 10,000 bhikkhus lived over this big area, including where we're sitting right now, and so many enlightened beings, and the energy is just so peaceful.
There's a sort of feeling of coming home when you come to a Dhamma centre. You know how it works, and I think these centres were lovely. I hadn't seen any small centres in India, and there was a tremendous welcome from the local community, and I hope that our coming was a tremendous support to them, to feel that there are people all over the world who are practicing, who want to come and sit at their centre. It's really nice. We've had a couple of one-day sits. It gave you a bit of time to just hear Gangaji's chanting and instructions and kind of just ground yourself again in that. It's been really nice to do a bit of service at the centres, and I think that's really important, that if we go to centres and sit there, there should be time to serve as well. You know, we did some cleaning, or people did gardening, whatever they felt like doing.
The yatra did give us a good chance to meditate, but also to see how it is put in practice. It was a big inspiration traveling with all these people and seeing them put it into practice.
The Buddha was fatigued, and Ananda prepared a place for him to meditate in the resting lion's pose between two great sala trees. The trees, delighted to have the Buddha meditate beneath them, burst into untimely bloom, and the flower blossoms gently fell on the Buddha's body. Ananda, do you see all these wonderful offerings of veneration? The Buddha asked his attendant. None of these compared to living a life of Dhamma, the highest offering a being can make. After a few moments of silence, the Buddha looked around at the assembly and then uttered his last words. Vaye Dhamma Sankara Appamadena Sambhadeta. Now, meditators, this I declare to you. Decay is inherent in all compounded things. Strive with diligence.